Across Nigeria and around the world, UN Women works to advance the rights, opportunities, and well-being of women and girls through programs that strengthen leadership, expand economic opportunities, prevent violence, and support peace building. Hello and welcome to Empower. I am Ruth Joshua. My guest today, Dr. Suzan Agada, is a gender and social inclusion expert with extensive experience advancing women's political participation, peace building, and inclusive development. She currently serves as the National Program Officer for Peace Building and Prevention, Women, Peace and Security at UN Women Nigeria, where she supports programs that strengthen women's leadership, inclusive governance, and sustainable peace. Her work also spans equality for women, humanitarian response, and the prevention of sexual and gender-based violence, contributing to development initiatives across Nigeria. Driven by a passion for creating equitable opportunities for women and vulnerable groups, Dr. Agada continues to shape programs and partnerships that promote inclusive development and lasting social change. An absolute pleasure to have you join me today, Dr. Agada. I think I'll rather call you Dr. Suzan.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Same here. It's a pleasure to be here today.
It's particularly exciting for me because every time on this show, we get to reference UN Women, reports, facts and figures, to drive our conversation. So it's exciting for me to have you here. So I'm going to drive conversations from UN Women with someone from UN Women. You can imagine how excited I am.
No, we are happy to be of help.
I'm happy that you could make it here. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
My pleasure.
Yes, so across your work, let's just dive right into it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So across your work, even before UN Women, you have consistently worked at the helm of peace building, advocacy for women and girls. What inspires your motivation and commitment to this?
Yeah. Okay, so that's a very interesting question I get all the time. And I'm always very happy to respond because I think gender programming is one work that comes out of a lot of times out of passion, pushing for women's rights, pushing for gender equality and things like that. And that's for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
We all know that Africa and Nigeria still is a patriarchal society, which simply means that, women are not where they should be in terms of, having equal opportunities as their male counterparts and things like that. So seeing that gap and some of the barriers and challenges that women face, for me, it is of great, it's a great opportunity, especially being a woman, to be able to advocate for women's rights in a society where women face a lot of barriers. So I think the passion of pushing for those narratives to change and ensuring that women have better opportunities like their male counterparts and actually ahead and their voices, added in the decision-making sphere makes me passionate and makes me want to wake up every day and keep doing what I do. So it's actually, for me, it's beyond the job. I think it's a calling because I'm very happy and passionate about pushing for women's rights.
That's quite commendable, Dr. Sarah, because you are doing it with your energy. I can feel the energy from you. Very commendable work. But let's even move to your work. So currently you work with the UN Women. The UN Women, like most UN organizations, we hear them a lot. We use things from them. We follow them on Instagram. We see what they're doing. We know that, okay, they're advocating for women. But for a lot of people, we're not clear on the breadth of work as concerns UN Women. Can you give us some insight?
Okay, I'll be happy to do that.
Yeah.
So UN Women is actually the United Nations entity for gender equality, the empowerment of women or women empowerment, however you want to present it. And basically, we have two key mandates as an agency of the United Nations.
Okay.
One of the most important mandates is the coordination mandate, meaning that UN Women is an agency that is expected to coordinate all gender interventions within the UN system.
Okay.
And we also have what we call the operational mandate, which means that beyond our major role as coordinators of gender equality and gender interventions within the UN system, and also externally by providing support to host governments wherever we are situated across the world. We also have operational mandate, which simply means we also sometimes carry out projects that obviously focuses on women's rights, so, and that operational mandate makes us work in key areas we call thematic areas. Because when you talk about program implementation, the next thing that comes to your mind would be, okay, what kinds of programs? What are you guys interested in? What do you do for women? So within that sphere of our operational mandate, where we are able to sometimes carry out standalone projects, so not just coordinating gender interventions, but also reaching out to our right bearers, which are the women. For those thematic areas, we work in one, ending violence against women and girls. Secondly, women economic empowerment. Thirdly, women peace and security. And of course, governance, which is we now call women in decision making. Yeah, so those are the key thematic areas when it comes to our operational mandate. And of course, I already mentioned that our key mandate is the coordination, which means that we coordinate gender intervention. So externally with the government, we work very closely, obviously with the Ministry of Women Affairs to support these coordination mechanisms where we coordinate with all the state ministries of women affairs across the country, and of course the federal Ministry of Women Affairs as well, so that everything we do is in coordination, and it's, we have the same direction, we have the same results that we want to achieve for women and girls. So those are the kind of, just in a summary, kind of presenting to you what UN Women stands for and the kind of work we do, both within the UN system and externally in Nigeria as a country.
Because a lot of times we tend to think that it's, on its own. We're not necessarily working with the government. So I like that you are, telling us even within the UN organization itself and externally. But you touched on a couple of things that I'm really going to like for us to use to drive our discussions. That's the thematic areas in your operational activities. So I had read in the UN Women Annual Reports 2024-2025 that these key areas that you mentioned, women's violence against women, women in decision spaces, role of women in peace building, and the last one is
economic empowerment.
Thank you very much. I'd even like for us to move on. But also, let me start with women in decision-making, leadership, governance, right? I was opportune to join the webinar where the country, in May, where the country director was advocating for, participation of women in politics, and I've seen her do that even across other events. So, looking at the times that we're in, we're looking at 2027 elections, right? And we're looking at the participation of women in politics right now. In fact, I have a report from IPU that we can use to help us drive this conversation. So a recent report by the IPU ranks Nigeria at 174th out of 190 countries on the global classification for women's representation in national parliaments. Now, while this report is talking about Nigeria, I'd just like you to give us like a global perspective of this issue first, and then we'll bring it down to Nigeria.
Thank you so much for going actually in depth
Yes.
in the discussion around women participation in politics. And yes, I do agree with you that that has been a challenge and it continues to be a challenge. We continue to rank almost at the bottom. I think this statistics is looking a bit better than what you would see for Africa. We are basically at the bottom. And that's really sad. Sometime last year, with the constitutional review process, UN Women was in the forefront of pushing for the special seats for women bill. I don't know if you've heard about that.
Yes, the 35%.
We saw the constitutional review process as an opportunity where this could happen and create a big impact that could change this terrible narrative for women political participation in Nigeria. And we took that opportunity and put in our best foot. I must tell you that UN Women actually invested a lot in that process, thanks to the governments of Canada and UK that have supported us very faithfully, especially for women political participation. So within that framework, what we anticipated was that bill. Of course, if you have an idea of what the bill is a bill that provides for the establishment of special seats, or in other words, additional seats. So it is not a bill that tries to replicate anybody's seats or things like that. But of course, we look at it as a temporary measure, a corrective measure that can help more women to be included, especially as elected officials.
Yes.
So the bill basically seeks for the establishment of special seats at the National Assembly and the States Houses of Assembly, 3 per state across all 36 states and the FCT, 1 per state at the National Assembly, that's the House of Reps, and 1 per geopolitical zone for the Senate. So we felt that with that kind of temporary measure, hopefully that the situation, because currently women, the National Assembly, women stand at 4%.
So we even have
out of 100%.
Yes.
So it's really a sad situation. We have a Senate of 109.
And we have just 4 women sitting.
We have just 4 women.
And out of 360,
we have about 14 women.
16 each.
So it's really sad. You know, it's not a very good picture, especially where we stand as a country. We are supposed to be the most populous black nation, meaning we should be, you know, setting the pace. And when it comes to sustainable development issues, of course, we know Goal 5 is about gender equality. I don't think we are doing very well. So that was a big concern, and that was why we ensured we wanted to maximize the opportunity of the constitutional review process to see how that can be changed. As we speak today, unfortunately, the bill has still not been voted for. It was presented last month, but I heard they had other bills, and before they could get to the special seats, it ended. But we are very hopeful because we now hear that, you know, of course, other things are happening behind the camera to ensure that that happens. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I saw that Mrs. Beatrice was also pushing. She even said we can do 50-50.
Absolutely. She has always pushed for this.
So looking on to next year, are we expecting more female candidates? Are we expecting to see more people? Next year is just like
a few months.
Yes. So what are we looking at as concerns this election?
It's a very big question that is on the mind of every woman in Nigeria, because as we already agreed and pointed out, the situation is really bad currently. We can't be having just about 4% out of 100% of women representation in our parliaments. That's really bad. And unfortunately, from the recent primaries that happened, I mean, it was not hidden, it was public knowledge that so many women did not make it to the ballots. It's not looking very good, to be honest, if something drastic is not done. And that's why we are really hopeful, you know, that because we've not lost hope about the bill. We hear that the National Assembly is also pushing to ensure this comes into force before the electioneering period. So that will be the big scenario that can change the situation that we see today. Otherwise, I fear that it will go lower than the 4% that we are currently experiencing.
But, you know, just briefly, before we move on to something else, what, in your experience, and even within the UN organization, what do you collectively think are some of the barriers that are even discouraging women from participating?
When it comes to women political participation, I think there are quite a number of barriers that are not in the favor of women. And like you rightly coined your question, that is what discourages women, if you ask me. Let's look at it this way. Some of the key things for me that stands out when it comes to politics. Of course, we know that there's a high cost in politicking in a country like Nigeria. So high cost of campaign is an issue. Why is it an issue? Women have different roles from their male counterparts in the society. A lot of women strive to be as productive as male counterparts. But unfortunately, the reality is that women also have reproductive roles. Many women are home keepers. So the amount of time that their fellow male counterpart may have to put in to productive work and earn money, it's not the same as a woman. So obviously, that already shows that your financial capacity cannot be the same. So that's one on the one hand. Secondly, we continue to experience a lot of violence in elections. Women face a lot of violence, and violence is not something that encourages anybody to go into election. And I feel like it is worse for women because of, obviously, you know, for obvious reasons, strengths are not the same. Women are more vulnerable than their male counterpart. A simple example, I remember in the last election, there was a woman leader in Kogi State that was burnt alive in her house. So what message does that pass to her fellow women? They wouldn't want to go that route, simply, you know, for experiencing those kinds of scenarios. So violence in elections and politics generally is already also a discouraging factor in addition to finance. And then the party structure itself, also patriarchal. A lot of times when you look at all these parties and the party's constitution and the way it is structured, you realize that key offices are not kept for women. You can only find women as women leaders. And when there's election, they'll say, oh, go and mobilize women. But for key leadership positions like a party chairman, vice chairman, maybe financial secretary, those key positions are usually not kept for the women. So obviously, if you are not at the helm of affairs, it is very difficult for your gender to find their way and be on the ballot for such parties. So the party structures and constitutions also play a key role to why you see women not being favorably included when it comes to women political participation. So I will just present these 3 key factors, but I'm sure if we had the time, we would dive into so many other factors. But let's just leave it at these 3 key factors.
I will find time for us to discuss the rest of the factors.
Absolutely.
But yes, let's move on to another thematic area, which is violence against women and girls. Just like I've driven this with a report from UN Women. I mean, we always drive our conversations with reports.
Thank you for referencing those data, because we are very big on accountability mechanisms. Yes.
Well, you're welcome. You said thank you, so you're welcome. All right. So I have 2 reports actually that I'm going to use to drive this question. But let's take a look at the first one. Let's have it on the screen, please. Now, 1 in 3 women worldwide experience physical or sexual violence, mostly by an intimate partner.
Absolutely.
This report on its own is really disturbing, if you ask me. I'd like to hear your thoughts on it before we move to the next one, and then we can just finish up.
Yeah, so this is the reality. And funny enough, this doesn't just happen in Nigeria or Africa. It's a global situation.
Yeah.
If you watch a lot of crime television, you realize that in a lot of cases of death of a partner, most times it's the spouse. The spouse is always involved. And this stems from intimate partner violence. I know in Nigeria, if you remember during the COVID pandemic, the incidences of gender-based violence, specifically intimate partner violence, skyrocketed. Simply because that was the closed-down period where spouses were forced to be in the same homes. So we saw a rising high cases of IPD exacerbated in Nigeria. I personally, was part of a study that period, and it was amazing. It was shocking, to see the number of IPDs. Some led to the death of a lot of women, unfortunately. So yes, this data is very valid, and it's not just a Nigeria issue, it's a global issue. A lot of times, violence is perpetrated most times from the home and from people closest to you, which in this case are spouses.
Intimate spouses.
Yeah.
Very thought-provoking. But I'll just like us to pause here. We'll go on a break. When we come back, we'll pick it up
Absolutely.
from here.
Yeah.
If you're following this conversation, please stay with us. We'll take a break, and we'll be back to pick it up from where we've stopped.
To us women, they said, wait. We said, now. They told us that the sky was the limit, so we looked up and realized there are footprints on the moon. For generations, we have been the backbone of culture, the heartbeat of revolution, the architects of our societies. Today, we aren't just surviving history, we are shaping it, shifting culture, lifting communities, shattering barriers, rewriting the rules. We are the unstoppable forces of our communities, amplifying our own voices, our brilliance, our boldness with unapologetic power. Every story matters, every achievement counts, every voice has power. This is for the disruptors, the gladiators, the ladies, the mothers, the leaders, the visionaries, shaking the very foundations of the status quo. No more whispers, no more waiting. We own our fears. Welcome to the movement. This is EmpowHer.
Thank you for staying with us. If you're just joining us, this is EmpowHer, and we have Dr. Suzan with us here in the studio. She's from UN Women, and she's giving us some insight into the work that UN Women do as pertains women and girls. Thank you so much, Dr. Suzan, for staying put.
My pleasure.
So just before we went on the break, we were discussing violence against women and children. My second report, let's have it on the screen, please, is this. Having established that, women go through violence, especially from their intimate partners, we have this following saying only 40% of these women seek help of any sort after experiencing violence. Now, my question is...
Absolutely.
How do we create protection networks for women? How do we make communities that are safe enough for victims to be able to own up? Because really, there are reasons, a couple of reasons why women do not seek any help.
Yeah.
You know, after experiencing violence. Can you help us just, you know, enumerate some of these reasons why we're having these kind of statistics? I think you gave a comment already about the violence just before we went on the break, but please help us to touch on this.
Yeah, so this is very, very correct and obvious for obvious reasons. Unfortunately, gender-based violence is one of the most underreported incidences, the perpetration of it. And it's simple because of some key barriers and challenges that women face, you know, that limits them from speaking out or seeking for help when they experience these kinds of violence. Number one, of course, we know that we remain a very traditional society, very patriarchal, where, you know, a lot of times we have norms, cultural and religious norms. Unfortunately, sometimes some of those norms kind of, you know, encourage gender-based violence on one hand. And then on the other hand, some bring about, you know, some form of brainwashing or behavioral change that women don't speak out. We are in a society where when women experience violence, instead of speaking out to services that can give you professional help, we believe in confiding in family. And then you have this cultural kind of behavior. You hear families where women have actually cried out, because I did a lot of work around gender-based violence, specifically within the humanitarian response. And you would see cases where women would obviously want to confide in the people they have confidence in, sometimes parents. And they'll tell them things like, oh, you want to be the one that will bring shame to our family. You want to leave your husband. This has never happened, and we don't want you to start. So those kinds of cultural norms are not encouraging. It makes a lot of women not speak out. A simple example, we all heard the very sad case of Osinachi, the beautiful singer with a lovely voice. She was a very spiritual person who sang gospel music, and obviously, you know, within a church system. We later got to realize that she had always complained, she had confided, of course, within the church system. But because that's the kind of message you receive, nothing was done. So what we try to do with awareness around gender-based violence is that now there are services. We have what we call the referral pathways when it comes to GBV response. We have key services that, you know, that help any survivor within the referral pathway to get help. We have law enforcement in cases where there's a threat to life. We have legal services. We have psychosocial support. You know, so these are key services that women that are legalized, that are government approved, that women can seek help. So if women know that if you are in danger or if you suffer gender-based violence, there's a government-approved line of action that can ensure that you are safe, women would probably, you know, seek for more help. But like I mentioned, some of these other factors limit those women. And another key factor is even awareness. How many women know of these services?
Exactly.
So that is one key area that I know development partners and civil society actors have continued, you know, to work around, creating awareness, because I believe that prevention of GBV is always better than responding to it.
Actually.
So this is what it is. I will just end by saying that a lot of intertwined factors, like I've mentioned, cultural norms, religious norms, even victim blaming and stigmatization from the community, from the family. I've worked in communities where a woman had to run away after receiving help because she spoke out about her perpetrator who raped her. By the time she was back in the community, she was being stigmatized. She was being pointed out. Oh, that was the girl that reported. Oh, that was you know. So her other counterparts? Do you think if they experience such situations, so these are some of, unfortunately, some of the key issues you see why just about 40% would continue to. Women do not feel confident that when they speak out that they will be protected and that they won't suffer stigmatization or victim blaming. And if the first person you are running to is already blaming you and putting that in your head, do you think you would want to speak to that person next time? So these are some of the key issues that continue to, reduce the percentage or the rates at which survivors of gender-based violence speak out or report.
This is quite a disturbing fact, a disturbing reality even. But I think that the onus is on us to keep making sure, keep
creating that awareness.
Creating awareness, just like you rightly mentioned, creating awareness, because that is the
it's
best
everybody's
approach.
business.
Yes, it is. We need to create stronger communities that amplify these messages so that people, more women, more girls are aware and they know that when you report,
action will be taken,
and they will
you
be
feel safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this response. Let's move now to economic empowerment. How is the UN Women, in collaboration, because I know you do partnerships a lot with other organizations. So how's the UN Women in, partnerships with other organizations working to create, sustainable interventions for women as regards economic empowerment?
Very good question. Remember from the onset, I mentioned that one of our major partners is the government.
Yes, you did.
Of course, the United Nations is a unity of nations. That means Nigeria is a member state.
Yeah.
So we are like government, basically. So every intervention is done in partnership with government, and that's for reasons of sustainability.
Yeah.
Because we believe that we may have an intervention or a project that has a lifespan. But after, beyond those kinds of interventions, what happens? What are the sustainability factors? So we ensure that from the onset of design, implementation, monitoring, and reporting of every intervention or project we have, that we work with key stakeholders, which include, of course, government machineries within such a thematic areas, for subnational, state governments, even community structures, community leadership, women's groups, youth groups, things like that. That is a deliberate strategy because we want to ensure that everybody is on board, right from the design stage and up to, so that at the time where UN Women is delivering on that project, the results are obvious and then it can be sustained.
Yeah.
Another key thing we do to ensure sustainability is that we don't even deliver projects directly. We work closely with civil society organizations because we believe that they are closest to the people.
True.
They are the ones on ground. They understand the issues. They are close to the people. And for sustainability reasons, even when the UN is not there anymore, these organizations remain to continue to do the work that they do for the people. So that's a key strategy. So based on that, already existing organizations that are working around issues of women economic empowerment are usually the ones who would partner with and probably provide oversight technical support to implement and deliver on interventions for women and girls in target communities and states across Nigeria. So that's the strategy.
Yeah, commendable work across that. But UN Women, how do you get across to grassroots women, the women in the villages, the women who are farmers, which, by the way, I'm just going to, hint on something. I'm not saying we're going to talk about it, which, women are in a lot of places, in a lot of farm-heavy, let me call it farm-heavy environments. Women are the drivers of agriculture in some of these places. And those grassroots women, they go through, they feel the most sting of things like insecurity
Yeah.
and all of that. For all of those women, what is it looking like for them from the UN Women perspective?
So like you rightly pointed out, the issues are actually at the grassroots. And the numbers in a country like Nigeria, you find it more at the grassroots.
True.
And that's why during campaigning and elections, the leaders still go back to
the
these poor
grassroots,
people to get their votes. So I do agree with you that we recognize that demography as very important. UN Women actually focuses on grassroots women, to be honest. My country rep has been a strong advocate for grassroots interventions. That has always been her focus, and that has also been one of the key strategies for UN Women. So when you see some of our women economic empowerment initiatives, you will realize that they are located at the grassroots. We have the Akpo Women Association at Kuje, for example, just giving you FCT. We do what we call the biogas, where we convert climate smart, it's a climate smart agriculture kind of initiative. You convert dung and produce power. Those are also focused for rural women. Yes, so we do believe and 100% agree that the issues are actually at the grassroots. And that the women at that grassroots are the ones that need the most intervention. And that's why I mentioned that because of that, we work with community-based organizations, civil society actors who are at that level, who have always been the ones providing support to those women. And that is why we choose to work with those people, because they understand the issues. They have been the ones supporting those women. And based on that, we're able to deliver support to women and girls
to their needs
across communities in Nigeria.
Nice. Okay. That's a very good one, by the way.
Thank you.
But now let's move to, I think, the last thematic area that we spoke about, the role of women in peace building. Now, this particular area, I'm not so familiar with. Yes. So I'd just like for you to educate myself and a host of others who are not familiar with this on the role of women in peace building. Yeah.
Great. I mean, unfortunately, in recent times, we've continued to experience heightened insecurity in Nigeria, if you agree with me. And over the years, over centuries, they've always been issues of crisis. We've either experienced farmer-herder clashes, we've experienced land issues, and in recent times it has graduated to things like banditry and kidnappings. So within those community clashes, which used to be the major issues, and farmer-herder clashes, a lot of times what has helped to sort out those issues have been like mediation, dispute resolution. Research has shown, especially in Nigeria and through the work that UN Women has done on ground in communities, that women are the best mediators. A simple example is in a regular family. When there's an issue, most times in homes, who do kids run to? They always go to the moms. So women by their nature are nurturing. And so that endears people to speak to such people. And trust me, through our interventions on peace, on women, peace and security and peace building over the years, we have realized that a lot more successful mediation and interventions happened because women were involved. In short, we have a lot of success. For example, in Adamawa, there was a project that we implemented where at the beginning, of course, in traditional northern societies, mostly men are like the Angwas, the chiefs. Do you know, because of that intervention and training of those women, and they started actively mediating on peace issues within their community. We currently now have over 200 and something chiefs that were appointed by of course, the first class chief and all that, because he realized that, wow, these women were even doing better. So he made a lot of them his advisors and appointed them
That's
as chiefs.
really good work.
Yes,
really interesting
amazing.
work.
So women are really, really good peace builders, not just within their families, but even within their societies.
Yeah.
And yes, they've actually been doing a lot. We had a project called the Peace Building Fund that rounded up sometime last year. I remember at the closeout session, the governor of Kaduna State actually made a touching speech and confirmed the fact that he was really amazed at how a lot of communities that suffered some of these community clashes in Kaduna had reduced drastically because of the intervention of women, you know, who are now trained mediators because of the support that the UN provided through the Peace Building Fund.
Really nice. Really, really commendable. This should be like the third time I'm saying commendable on this show.
Thank you.
But that is really good work. I mean, it goes to show that we are more than just what our cultural norms, you know, have set us to be or portrayed us to be. That's some really good work. And I really thank you that you took the opportunity to come here and share this with us, because I'm sure that a number of our audience out there may not even know that things like this happen, because they happen at the grassroots. Sometimes we don't get to hear this, just unless on things like this. Thank you so much. But pleasure. Yes, we have come to the end of today's show. But just before I let you go, I'd like you to look into your camera and speak to that woman, speak to that girl out there. In fact, at this point, I don't even want to say speak to that. Speak to those girls out there. Speak to those women out there who are just, listening in on this conversation and asking, is there hope for me? Yeah. What's one thing you want to leave them with? What's an assurance that you'd like them to know about UN women and their situation?
Yeah. So for every woman and girl out there, I think the first and important assurance I would like you all to know is that UN Women as an entity of the United Nations is here specifically for you to promote and support issues that concern women and girls. Then as people, like my presenter mentioned in her closing statement, women are way more than the society has portrayed us to be because of our subordinate roles. Women are strong, women are nurturing, women are multitaskers. So I want you to continue to believe in yourself, believe you are the change maker, and you can only believe and achieve if you continue to make that effort into realizing that which you believe. So please, you are special, you are amazing beings, and you are positioned to achieve great things and hopefully make Nigeria a greater and better nation.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Such comforting words. Such comforting words. I hope it lands for the right audience.
Yeah, I think we need to keep encouraging ourselves as women. Women are doing amazing, but a lot of times don't get to hear those encouragement and positive words. So that is something I, as a person, have made sure that in mentoring even the younger generation, I encourage them to let them know that you're actually doing amazing and you can do even more. Your role as a woman in the society does not and should not limit you from being the best that you can be.
Even I feel encouraged. Thank you so
much.
Happy
you do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suzan. I'm
My pleasure.
So glad that you honored this invitation.
I totally enjoyed this conversation.
I did too.
And thank you too for making this happen. And like you rightly pointed out earlier, information is power.
It is.
So platforms that cascade such information is important. So well done on the good job you're doing here.
Much. Thank you so much, ma. It's been such a pleasure.
My pleasure too.
So, building peaceful and resilient societies requires, more than just our good intentions. It requires inclusive institutions, meaningful participation, and opportunities for women to influence the decisions that actually shape their communities, just as we have heard in this conversation with Dr. Suzan from UN Women. Thank you for staying put on this conversation. on EmpowHer. I've been your host, Ruth Joshua.